Hi, and welcome to another episode of A Walk to Remember. My name is Dwayne Baker-Henderson, and as always, I'll be your host as we explore some of the truths and the myths surrounding postpartum depression, as well as give you a couple of tips that might make your journey or someone else's journey through postpartum depression just a little bit easier. In the last episode, we talked about how to postpartum depression proof your relationship, how to avoid a couple of pitfalls that might damage your relationship along the way through something as traumatic as postpartum depression. Today I want to talk about how to love the person that is going through that experience. This can be something that's quite difficult to do when their moods have changed and their personality sometimes seems like it's changed, and what matters to them and what sparks them to certain responses has changed. And so it can be quite difficult being the partner in that situation. And again, that's what I found myself in that position in 2008, 2009 when my wife had postpartum depression. Now there are 5 things I would recommend in this situation to really maintain that love that you have for your partner or your spouse. The first pertains to a quote in a book that I read years ago. It's one of my favorite books. It's by Stephen Covey, and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In that book, one of the 7 habits of the highly effective people is to always seek first to understand before trying to be understood. And that quote has always stuck with me since I read it. It's something that I try to do with my children and my wife and everybody I come into contact with. I try to understand what their motivations are behind how they're responding to me and the stuff that they're projecting towards me. And that is the first tip, is always trying to understand that before you try and have the other person understand what's going on with you. When somebody's going through something like postpartum depression, sometimes they're not always thinking rationally and thinking about other people. It's something that pulls you into yourself and makes you much more internal than external. So try and understand what's going on with them before you try and make the other person understand what's going on with you. The second thing is a recommendation, actually. And it has to do with another book. Before Corey got postpartum depression, we were lucky enough to read this book. It's The 5 Love Languages. It's by a gentleman named Gary Chapman. And it's not a very manly looking book. It's purple, has pink writing on it. But it's a great book for all husbands out there. And I would highly recommend that you read it. It is something that made our transition through postpartum depression infinitely easier, because it helped me to really understand how to express love to my wife Corey in her own language. In this book, Chapman talks about there being 5 different ways that we feel love from other people, and it's different for each of us. Usually, you have a dominant one out of the 5, and then it's a mixture of the rest in ourselves. And if you're not speaking to somebody in their own language, then you're not really speaking to them. I'll just quickly run through what the 5 love languages are that he explains. And again, I'd highly recommend reading this book. I'm not going to go through all these in a great deal of detail. The first is words of affirmation. So hearing positive things about themselves, being complimented, being acknowledged for what they are and who they do, or who they are and what they do. Sorry about that. The second is quality time. Spending quality time with somebody who that is their main love language is the best thing that you could possibly do. And it's not about quantity, it's about the type of time that you're spending with them, whether you are doing an activity that they really like, or you're just spending time talking with them and being with them and sharing the space with them. That's what's most important to those people. Another love language is giving and receiving gifts. So those people will really enjoy when you give them small things, when you bring them a flower, when you give them a candle, when you take them out for dinner or something like that. Those little surprises is what makes them feel like they're being loved. The fourth is acts of service, doing things for people. And it might be something really simple like picking their towel up after they have a bath, or it might be something larger, going to get the groceries, or cooking them a dinner, or something like that, warming up their car. It's coming up to winter here and it's cold today, so that might be something that's important to somebody in this city. And the last one is physical touch. Those people, a hug means more than almost anything. And so if you know how to speak to your partner or your spouse in the language that they speak, when it comes to love, how they actually feel love the most, they'll actually know that you still love them, and that will help them a great deal in their day. And what we tend to do is talk to them in our own native language. So my personal primary love language is physical touch, and Corey's is actually words of affirmation. So if I want to express love to Corey and I just give her hugs all the time, I'm not really telling her I love her. I'm telling her something else. I don't know what that is. Whereas if I sit down and talk with her, that means a lot more to her. So this is a great book to really understand your partner so that you can speak to them with love. The third tip that I'll give you is to let love be an action and not an emotion. And by that I mean show your partner love. Show them the things that they feel as love. Don't just tell them you love them unless their love language is words of affirmation. It's a series of small actions that add up to that feeling of love for the other person. The fourth tip I want to give you is to love them first. And this was a tough one for me. There were times when I felt very alone when Corey was going through postpartum depression and our family's going through it. There were times when she really needed to take care of her own self above everything else. And had I gotten caught up in not feeling loved and not showing love to Corey because she wasn't showing it back to me sometimes, that would have been disastrous for our wedding or our marriage. So let them feel loved first. Be the one that goes out of your way to help them feel loved in whatever their love language is, in whatever way that works best for them. And the last tip I'll give you is just to stay committed. There were times when it was really difficult to love Corey and to go without having it reciprocal all the time. And that wasn't something she was doing intentionally. That was something that was brought on by the postpartum depression. She was just really, really trying to take care of herself, and so everything else came second, and that's to be expected. But stay committed to your loving your partner, and eventually they'll get through it, and you will feel likely much more love after the fact than you did before they went through postpartum depression. That was my experience anyway. It really helped to grow our relationship for us to do the things that I've explained in the last two videos. And for me, these 5 things were huge. Seeking first to understand was really, really important so that I didn't get caught up in reacting to the way that Corey was changing. The 5 love languages, like I said, really, really important. And I'll put a link to the Amazon listing for this book so that you can buy it if you want to. Let love be in action. Really, really important. Not to just have it as words or just as emotional stuff. Have those little actions every day that help your spouse or partner feel loved. Love them first and stay committed to doing that. And you'll find that your relationship may come out the other side of postpartum depression much stronger than it was going in. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, please give it a like. Share it with people who you might think would find some value in it. Give me your comments below. I love to read what you have to say. And subscribe to the channel if you want to hear what's coming up next. I do put out these videos every Tuesday. I put out my personal video blog every Friday, just what's on the top of my head at that point. And there's always lots of good things going on. So subscribe to the channel, leave me your comments, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.